I'm Zori Fonalledas. That's my last name, but I'm so glad to be here. Has been a great conference, but it's a pleasure for me to be here with such good friends. And Governor Luis Fortuno started his career in public service in 1993 as Director of Tourism and then Secretary of Economic Development in Puerto Rico. After a short stint back in the private sector, he was elected to a two-term congressional seat as Puerto Rico Resident Commissioner. His peers in Congress then elected him Vice President of the House Republican freshman class. He also served as Vice Chair of the Congressional Hispanic Conference during the 109th Congress and as Chair during the 110th Congress. In 2008, he was elected Governor of Puerto Rico by the largest margin in modern election history, a Reagan conservative with over 20 years of service in the Republican Party. He has been our national committeeman for the last 14 years. Under Governor Fortuno's leadership, Puerto Rico implemented the largest tax cut in the territory's history, dramatically reduced its government, greatly controlled deficit spending, and developed new sources of government revenue. Governor Fortuno's signature public-private partnerships law paved the way for the two of the largest recent infrastructure investments in the U.S. One is Puerto Rico's highway system, and the other in the island main international airport. Former Governor of Puerto Rico, Luis Fortuno, is a partner at the Steptoe and Johnson Law Firm in Washington, D.C. office, where he's a member of the Corporate Securities and Finance Group, the Government Affairs and Public Policy Group, and is involved in their Latin American practice. My friend, Governor Luis Fortuno, is married to attorney Luce Vela, who is here with him, and they are the and his daughter Maria Luisa. They are the proud parents. They are the proud parents of triplets that are currently seniors in top mainland colleges. I am very proud to introduce Governor Luis Fortuno.
Thank you, Zori. That was very kind. Thank you. Well, it's great to be here, and first of all, I want to thank Jennifer Horn for this, and her team for this wonderful conference. You have done a great job, and Jennifer, as I mentioned earlier, I brought a palm tree tie hoping to bring warmer weather. Obviously didn't work, so we'll try something else next time around, but we truly enjoy every time we come to New Hampshire. We enjoy New Hampshire, and as I was sharing with some folks outside, my brothers and I have fond memories of coming over here to Center Ossipee for summer camp every year, year in, year out, and we have the best memories of our lives. And certainly it's an honor to have this opportunity to talk with you at what I believe is a great moment of promise, at the same time that it is a moment of peril for our country. We are indeed at a critical moment, and as mentioned earlier, I'm proud to be joined by my bride of 30 years, Luce, and our daughter, Maria. And as parents, we are worried that if we do not reverse our course as a nation, we'll be the first generation of mom and dads who will pass on to our children more debt, less opportunity, and less of a country that we were given. And it doesn't have to be that way. I can prove it and I can tell you that so many governors around the country can prove it as well. Because indeed, freedom is alive, freedom works, and conservative principles can turn this country around, just like so many states have been turned around by excellent Republican governors all over the country. And the reason for it is the American people were greater than our problems. If we change Washington, just as those Republican governors have been doing at their state level, the nation is destined to achieve great things again. We, each one of us, have a role in unleashing the power of individual freedom, free markets, and opportunity. However, what is needed is courage, leadership, and action. And that's exactly what's lacking at the White House today. Because while Washington has stumbled, so many governors and state houses are showing the way. And those state leaders know, as we all know here, that we ought to place our faith not in government, but in our citizens. And that's what really will turn this country around. Because we can outthink, outdream, and outproduce anybody in the world as long as we're rewarded fairly. In my case, as was mentioned earlier by Zori, I came into office during the deepest recession that Puerto Rico had experienced, and with the worst fiscal situation in the nation, with a deficit that actually the government at the time was spending $1.44 for every dollar it had. We literally had no money for first payroll, and the rating agencies were about to turn our bonds into junk. But contrary to the president, we didn't use the crisis to grow the government. We did exactly the opposite. Actually, we cut our expenses by 20%. And I'm talking about real cuts, not Washington cuts. At the end, we were able to reduce our budget deficit by almost 90%, and for the first time in almost 3 decades, the rating agencies raised our rating. We implemented the largest tax cuts in our history, flattened our system, and simplified our tax system. And we used private capital to improve our schools, roads, and other buildings, including the airport. We cut capital gains taxes, property taxes, and we saw a jumpstart in our housing market at the time. And we streamlined our permitting process, and we saw the economy grow for the first time in 6 years. Again, that was the result of placing our faith in our people as opposed to the government. It is too bad. It is unfortunate that tax and spend Democrats have taken over since then and have increased the budget dramatically as well as taxes, and the result actually didn't wait for too long. Not unlike the present administration in Washington. And we have seen, coming out of Washington, the imposition, artificial imposition of solutions coming from Washington to be imposed in New Hampshire, in Vermont, in California, in Alabama, in Texas, as if that could be done. It doesn't work. The end result has been the weakest recovery since World War II. We have a highly chronic high unemployment rate that affects especially younger workers as well as minority workers. We have the largest deficit in our history, and our national debt is above $17 trillion. I don't know how many zeros that has. Worker participation is at the worst level in 30 years, and average household income is down almost $4,000. And so some wonder why this is happening. If I may, for starters, let's examine Obamacare. The way it was structured, it's crushing small businesses and it's killing jobs all over the country. Additionally, it creates an incentive, believe it or not, for small businesses to cut back to under 50 employees or reduce working hours to less than 30 hours a week just to avoid that mandate. The congressional Budget Office, which is a bipartisan office, estimates that Obamacare will kill over 2 million jobs by 2017. And some in Washington still wonder why that law is so unpopular. And actually, and it is shocking, that same office actually stated that the law creates an incentive for some of the workers to leave their jobs, but still actually be able to obtain health insurance. It is unbelievable as it may sound. Nancy Pelosi commented on this, that actually this was positive. That people are now able to leave unfulfilling jobs to become, and I quote, artists or a writer without worrying about keeping their day jobs to have health insurance. You know, I don't have a problem with artists or writers. However, I do have a problem with all of us working harder, paying higher taxes, and subsidizing the voluntary unemployment of those that decide to take this route in search of their muse. I'm proud of our nation. And our nation was built on hard work, personal responsibility, and fairness. And we cannot allow anyone in Washington to change our values, the values that make us the greatest nation in the history of the world. And as if that is not bad enough, an international arena, it feels like we're back to the future. Basically with a incoherent or non-existent foreign policy, our firm determination to lead from behind has been noticed by allies and foes alike. Let me go down the list. Our traditional friends in the Middle East don't trust us anymore, and many have concluded that it's a lot safer to act on their own. In the case of North Korea, it feels entitled to threaten our allies in the region with missiles. Russia just announced that it will start using military bases in Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua again for its Navy and to refuel strategic bombers, yes, right here in our backyard. In Syria, our president drew a line that could not be crossed, only to ignore it a few months later, granting a carte blanche to its dictator so that he could murder his own people. And by the way, I'm not promoting that we send or have boots on the ground there. I just feel that we ought to keep our word. Look, just like the president should keep his word when he said that if you like your insurance policy, you can keep it. And in Iran, we were so desperate for a nuclear agreement that the French, yes, the French, provided some backbone in that negotiation, stopped the process, and demanded greater compliance and verification mechanisms to protect the integrity and sovereignty of Israel and other friends in the region. And just next week, we all believe that Russia will complete its annexation by force of Crimea. You know what? It feels just like 1980 all over again. And if I may, and we're a great place to do that, I'd love to paraphrase our presidential nominee at the time, then candidate Ronald Reagan. And he said, "Our allies are losing confidence in us, and our adversaries no longer respect us. Our partners are confused by the lack of a coherent principal policy from these," you could say Carter, in this case, it's Obama administration. In every aspect, the conditions are ripe for another Republican revolution. However, to be successful, we need to promote our conservative policies again. We need organic, bottom-up economic growth, not one that is artificially imposed from Washington. We need to open energy resources that we have in this nation so that we can have cheaper and cleaner power, starting with the construction of the Keystone XL pipeline. We ought to guarantee every family, regardless of their socioeconomic level, an equal opportunity education, one in which parents decide what's best for their children, not Washington bureaucrats. We need to promote access to bottom-up healthcare services, not stifled by government intervention. We must promote the free flow of goods, services, ideas, and people in this hemisphere, promoting free trade agreements. And we must promote a strong foreign policy that reassures our allies and protects our national interests. And yes, vigilant of our borders, we must make all Americans, all new Americans, feel welcome in our party and in the nation. And those new Americans are those that come to our nation because they share our ideas and principles. They are willing to work hard, pay their taxes, abide by the rules, and stand in line so that their children may live better lives than they, and so that one day they may achieve the American dream. Exactly those who come to our shores yearning to make America their home. And we must stand for our principles, promoting individual freedom and personal responsibility. We must celebrate our diversity that made us such a great nation and demand equal opportunity for all of those that are willing to work hard. It is time to stand up to Washington. We must compel Washington to make the tough decisions that it ought to make with courage. It is time for Washington to lead within its means, just like American families across this great country have done for so many years. But to show promise, also it is the time to show the promise of a country that can be realized by the younger generation that at this moment may be questioning the American legacy we never had reason to doubt. It is time to show that our brightest days are indeed ahead and that we can reignite America's engine of growth. I come here to New Hampshire confident that our party will provide the necessary leadership to address those challenges, promoting opportunity for all. That's indeed the party I joined, stuffing envelopes in 1980 for President Ronald Reagan. We don't stuff envelopes any longer. But his message was one that was full of energy and optimism. His message was one that stated that if we're true to our principles and ourselves, a brighter day is just waiting for us. Just over that horizon, we will again be that shining city upon a hill, free, strong, and prosperous, a magnet to all that must have freedom. Let's gain seats in the House this cycle. Let's retake the Senate this November, starting right here in New Hampshire. And let's build a coalition for 2016 that will allow us to elect a Republican president so that we can indeed get our nation moving in the right direction again. Thank you, and God bless you. God bless America.